rather about these two things. Okay, so the first thing is digital forensics research articles, and the second part is the guide itself, so the whole guide. Right. So the first thing I have to tell you guys is that every script that you see here is supposed to be used by you because those are actual scripts that have been written and they are very useful, so to speak. The second thing I'll tell you guys is that the most useful parts right now from this forensic repository, the Gitbook that I have, the documentation, is very useful for all of you to use, despite most of it being free. The point here is that this has the artificial intelligence that you can talk to. You can ask the Gitbook assistant questions, and that will go through all of the pages, all of the research material, all of those repositories that I have added. And this entire information is going to be taken from the book. That's why I'm also adding systematically some new information to this. Now, what's different between those two utilities? The free guides will only update if people, the general community, really want me to update it and add something new to it. However, for you guys, I will be utilizing this artificial intelligence, especially from those guides, in order to simplify the explanation for you. And those explanations that the AI gives truncates from the general database. So this whole thing, and I'm gonna be sending you guys all the PowerPoint presentations, PDF research papers, and everything related to those methods. Now, before we begin, do you guys have any, questions in advance? Okay, I assume nobody has any questions. So the very first thing we can begin with is either the digital forensics repository, because we have three separate pages added to this, and I suggest that you guys often look at the research articles. Because, for example, yesterday I added this article, which is a repository all about Ericsson, an article, research article all about Ericsson on tools and the updated new guide. So you can either scroll through this, or you guys can also just ask AI, for example. For example, if we have, you have to wait for this to give you answers, because yeah, right. So um, you can, for example, you can ask this question: how can I use these tools? Now it's going to be laggy because there's a lot of information here. How do I use these tools uh, to detect, let's say, browser access? Now, this will give you either two answers. First is prefetch, the second is jump lists and recent docs, because you can basically, not only can you view those through jump lists, you can also check exactly what website was accessed. So that's quite of something for, yeah. So Serum database, SQLite database, that's not really. Okay, so prefetch is here. Event logs. Uh, okay, none of these mentions jump lists. Okay, that's. Now these are interesting answers. As you can see, this also gave you the commands for all of this. And that's really nice, I think. So this is not something you should, um, I would say, utilize for, uh, you know, if you are already screen sharing somebody. I would not or inspecting somebody. I would not recommend that you also have these open as an assistant. I mean, you can do that, but it's better if you learn in advance. So there are a lot of summaries all over here. Another thing that you can do is that you can basically ask it to. So if there's maybe there's something that you don't understand, right? You could ask this to copy all of this, paste this, and type like explain, and you can send it that. Okay, so it will explain all
Battery
of this,
low.
and it will use this entire page, to explain it to you, as well as all of those other ones. So as you can see, it just used the same command over here, and it also gave us links to the forensic applications. So it did not really come up with anything new, but they just summarized everything for you. Now, there's also Windows artifacts that I recommend that all of you read. This should be the beginning of your learning and of your self research, I would say. Because okay, so you can also go to the original link to this page. So uncovering Windows artifacts, you can read all about these. However, this is still missing some articles which are mentioned here. Uh, so you can basically just go through all of those, and then you
Charging
can begin
battery.
with the summary of artifacts, which is an AI summary. So this just talks about registry keys, event logs, prefetch files, shortcut files, jump lists, shellbacks, browser databases, and analysis tools. So this also gives you links to, for example, volatility, red reaper, autopsy, which I don't recommend that you. And sleuthkit actually is very useful. You're going to be covering the sleuthkit. Nobody uses it in screen sharing for some reason, but it is very useful and very unique, so to speak. However, on the other hand, autopsy is not really that impressive. And so you guys can always read the free material first, and it also gives you all the links to everything, right? So you just either can read the free material, or you can always ask the artificial intelligence. And then we have the practical scenarios. Practical scenarios are although this is a free repository, our future webinars for the next 3 months are going to include practical scenarios. So this is essentially a case study. So this is a made up story, by the way. So So we have an issue at hand. We have the incident, and then we have how the forensic professionals managed to uh, tell what was going on. And then we have the actual scripts that I recommend you guys use, because those are actually working scripts. I know that not everybody's gonna start using them. By pop filter. What's a pop filter? I don't know what that is. Um, well, basically. So these are actually working scripts. Okay, they do something. Okay. Now you can also utilize the AI to explain things to you. For example, this just summarizes everything on this page. In this case, so the first thing I'm also going to talk to you more about the RR rules and the memory forensics later. However, these are mainly case studies. I think I have that. Let me find it. Okay. Now the delay was because I'm basically outside and there's a lot of noise here. I hope that you guys can hear everything that's going on in the background, because Jesus. So anyway, so what I recommend that you guys do is that study the cases, study the plain taking of notes. It's so I'm at my workspace and there's basically they have heaters and fans and did you find it? Yes, I think I had it in my backpack. So anyway, what I recommend that you guys do, even though these are free utilities, free cases, I still recommend that you study those free case study like analysis because it will help you. Because those are the things that, for example, in this case, all of you are going to learn how to analyze the all of the partitions, connected devices, USB drives, virtual drives, and find those traces on the device. For example, so this script is also quite useful because although most of these don't work, for example, it doesn't really. Yeah, there's also a construction outside, so I hope that you guys don't hear that. Well, if you do hear that, then I guess I will. If you have to tell me so that I pause it before it's like over. All right. So these most of these are quite useful. For example, the practical scenario for the Windows artifacts. This is supposed to teach you the registry artifact. Although after you read this entire case, or if you want, I can read that with you myself too. You will figure out that there is also what you guys would call a bypass example here, because there are user assist traces for the entries of extensionless files that are the malware attacks on the organization. Now, to speak of this entire case properly, so we have the case information here. I'm gonna go through these very fast for all of you so that this all makes sense to you. So we have that the financial services company became suspicious when an employee, Beben, well, I used Beben in this case, but instead of John, but let's just do Beben. So what happened here is that the employee who was fired used their own USB stick, so USB device, to extract the corporation data and left the corporation after that. So you have no right to do that. There is no so that this is what you would call the civil forensic experts for, or you can also call the criminal forensic experts, depending on what you want to do. For example, as I think I've shared the PowerPoint for digital forensics, right? Have I not? I think I have. Should have something. It should be somewhere here. I'm supposed to wait. Okay. So I'm going to continue this. So there are two cases. Now let's talk about what you guys are rather learning. There are two cases where the forensic expert's knowledge is going to be used in the real world. In this case, not just screen sharing. We have civil, so corporational analysis. That's where the incident response comes in. And then we have the criminal investigations. That's where the digital forensics comes in. Because incident response is not something that entails the entire field of cyber security. Digital forensics, as we said, is a field, a sub field of cyber security. And what they do is that you either identify the attack and or you prevent the attack. Preventing the attack is called incident response, or just preventing the attack and responding to an incident swiftly. And identifying is just forensic analysis. So what happens here is that there is a case. This is a situational example, a case where that happened. So this is rather a civil case. So every month, every end of the month, we're going to have tests. You guys are gonna have tests. Oh my Jesus Christ! What the fuck? Yeah, I think going out in outside for this webinar was a mistake, but okay. So every end of the month, we guys are gonna have those tests. Okay, those tests are going to also include more scientific terminologies for digital forensics. So I hope that from what on. Oh wait, noise suppression. Uh, okay. I hope that does that work at all? Like maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. Okay. So either way, so either way, so those tests are going to test your knowledge not only about the methods, but to identify what kind of a forensic specialist you are in this case. In this case, we have the law enforcement because they just stole the information, right? So they also said denied the allegations, blah blah. And then we have the entire analysis. Your question here, what the investigation is all about, is five times better, really. What the question here, what that we have to answer is whether or not this guy connected a USB and transferred data on that USB. Now, there's also two separate problems that we have to deal with. First is knowing that it was John that connected an external USB that has never been connected to the device. So you cannot get a direct evidence to this case. And the second issue that we have is that knowing, like, you have to figure that if they connected a FAT32 drive or an exFAT drive, or a disk, let's say, you will not really be able to tell if they copied the data, unless data is very fast and you're also analyzing prefetch for the uploading screen. So there's always a loading screen that you have, and that leaves the for util traces. Now we have the case what they used. They used a PowerShell script. So the digital experts were called to use the PowerShell script in order to analyze those hives, those registry hives. Most of those registry hives are very useless. For example, mounted devices. Well, they're quite useful, but mount points to not every device has this, okay? Especially the volume snapshots. Not every device has the snapshots. However, that doesn't matter because you have to use all of your knowledge. They're also utilizing the partition diagnostic from event logs. Now, there's a mistake that they made with this script. The partition diagnostic is not going to immediately show them everything because what they are supposed to check is the partition for diagnostics event service itself, and they also should have USB store, volume snapshot, volume mounted devices, and they also should use system phone, but they also just do that. So you can just read these and test yourself in order to test it more. Now, they figured that there is a USB drive with a serial number, so if you guys ever wondered what those types of numbers represent, those are serial numbers, but this is of course imitated and doesn't really show you actual serial numbers of them. So then what they do is that they try to analyze execution artifacts. In this case, execution and access artifacts. In this case, for some reason, they chose Windows Radar. Windows Router is something Radar. It's something that I think I have added to the course material. It should be somewhere in the behavior. Okay, heap linked detections. Microsoft Radar. This is a rather newer explanation to the situation that we have at hand. Um, this is a new artifact. It's not really a new artifact that was introduced on Windows 11, but there are changes to this artifact on Windows 11. So as you can see, this has a lot of things. For example, it has sonar.exe, and it gives you the last detection time as well, which has to be converted. So you should always use And you also have the reflection applications, and the reflection applications are the processes that reflected those vulnerable executables. So you should always use Register Explorer if you want to actually do something with this. So what this is, the radar, is that it detects the heap links, which means that it is a component of an antivirus of Windows Defender. So you should always check that, because that will always flag and keep data of malicious applications that are still on the device, or that were fairly recently downloaded or executed or whatever. However, this mostly gets erased. So this is one of the downsides of volatile data, as we also have in this guide. This is a very fluctuate data. It is a very volatile data, so most of the information in the radar gets erased very quickly. And then we have this second script, which is quite useful. This gives you the collection of those artifacts, and then this is a brief debrief of what registries were accessed and what they used, what the investigations used, and then we reconstruct the timeline. Now, I did not include everything that I wanted in this timeline reconstruction, because that is a topic of our digital forensic webinar that is coming on September 9th. Now, creating a timeline of evidence is very useful, and is also very crucial. It is also very time consuming. If you have watched most of my long-term videos on screen sharing and inspecting devices, you will notice that I spend 30 minutes, or at least 20 minutes, on constructing a timeline. So just gathering evidence, leaving them be. Stream. Okay, wait. Is it better? Okay. So the point is that to construct a timeline, you have to you have to finalize an investigation. So this is the timeline that you really need. And for the timeline, you also need the dates of the operations. So what we found here is that at 14:30, so at 2 p.m., John logged on. So this was supposed to be Bevan. They used a Kingston USB, which is the most vastly used USB drive, and this is mostly a personal drive. And they inserted this, and it was assigned eDisk. Okay, so the Windows recognized this Kingston USB as an E drive. Then, in 15 minutes from the connection, sensitive file, for example, financial report doc, was opened from recent docs. What that means is that this guy was researching exactly what. So this guy was targeting exactly what to look for. So that's why we also utilize evidence of access and evidence of execution. Because right after connecting that, so they opened the financial report of somebody. And this same file was open, and they used the user assist evidence. And essentially, after like more time, the USB device was removed. So notice how this doesn't include a step where it says that they proved that the file was moved to the E drive. That is because this E drive, I'm pretty sure that I specified for it to be a FAT32, but the main reason is that we have these trays, okay? So we have a doc file, which is not the financial report, however, it is still a docx file. So it was either copy-pasted to a document file in the eDisk, or it was moved. So, and then basically you logged off from the device which stores that information. So As you guys can see, it is a very precise investigation. However, the next webinar we're gonna have, actually, especially for the digital forensics course, you guys will have to tell me or guess what additional steps that investigators could have taken or additional measures to prove more than this. This is more than enough, but there is evidence that is inadmissible. It is also indirect evidence, and you guys will have to tell me exactly what they should have or would have done better had they known better. Because there are a lot of flaws in this investigation. The first flaw is that they used PowerShell scripts for this operation. That's a huge flaw. However, it's not really a terrible thing. A lot of digital forensic professionals that I've met use and utilize PowerShell, but not immediately. They do snapshots and backups before they do anything with PowerShell, and that PowerShell has to be very bulletproof, let's say. So about all of these things, and especially the Sword Lotus guide itself. So this is a summary, a simplified guide for this entire 515 pages, although this is more likely like 400 and something pages screenshot guide. Okay, this is a summary, which means that if you guys have questions regarding this entire page, okay, this entire page, for screen sharing purposes, always refer to this page for artificial intelligence, because sometimes, most of the times, though this has the answer, this guide has those answers. For example, somebody feel free to like ask some question, any question about screen sharing that you want to know right now, so that we ask this uh, AI to read the entire guide and give you the response based on the guide. Right, so I said that you guys should ask me questions, so that we ask the AI that will go through the entire guide and return you answers. Are you guys awake? Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna, okay, come up with a question. No, like, it is a demonstration so that I show you guys, like, any question, like, just any question about Scrooge. What do you mean don't have any questions? You should have a lot of questions. This is exciting stuff, by the way. I don't have any questions, okay. Then I'm gonna come up with a question, okay. So let's say, how do I detect process following, which I don't think that it's gonna have that answer here, because I never added that. I'm not sure that I added that, but yeah. See, it is searching for everything. There we go. So it gave you that you can use volatility, HoloFind. You can also inspect with System Informer, check for process path versus loaded modules, count artifacts, prefetch, and stuff like that. Now, how to detect replaced files? Injection, FAT32 injection. I think you mean replacement, but okay, we can ask that. Okay. See, so this also gives you a lot of things, for example, the replacements. So this is gonna search for everything related to FAT32s. USB history with executions from a fat, and yeah, okay. Prove execution, okay, that works. With jump lists, for example, and recover them, okay. Well, this also gives you links, by the way. So if you click this, it's gonna take you there. So there's more information for you to read. Isn't this perfect? Yeah, so it shows the best ways or like ranks them. No, I can't edit the AI, unfortunately. However, you can ask it that. Can you rank that by the best ways first? Yeah, so you can just ask it all of those stuff. Although you have to have a very precise and specific questions. Let's just say. So okay. So that's basically how you can utilize all of this. However, you have to note one thing about all of these art. So all of these research articles, those are summaries. Okay, they don't include the entire information from this guide. And I think that me writing the entire guide by hand turned out better because it has fast information. But if you need faster answers, feel free to just use that AI. If you need shorter, well, I mean higher and more, researched answers, then you can just do here, for example, injections. So you can just ask injections. DLL injections. By the way, this shows you the exact methods and detections for DLL injections. In this case, what you can utilize, and it's not really mentioned in the guide itself, because it doesn't matter. What you have to know is that it doesn't matter if the injection was done through FAT32 or other USB drives or the regular disk. What you have to ask this is how do I detect and prove file injections like exe and DLL? This will give you a broader detection method. What that means is that the detection this gives, okay, well, I don't know why it first used volatility. I have no idea why it used volatility, to be honest with you. Well, the System Informer is better, and it also gives you the page for that, but that's interesting. So the signature and Yara, so this one is much better because this offers you a signature check for the injections, but it makes no sense why it offered you volatility. Although this is actually quite intriguing because what I came to realize is that you can use volatility if the game is still running, okay? You can still use the volatility functions for hollow find, malware find, and stuff like that if the game is still running. But the issue with volatility is that most of the people don't always inject into Minecraft. And the second issue is that you will have to set up an entire Python library in order to be able to use latest volatility functions. You'll also have to dump the entire memory. However, because this is a course that derives from inspection and screenshotting, I'm going to be explaining all of that, especially through the digital forensics course. So the FLR course is going to receive a more personalized coaching. I'm going to receive in-depth, like things that I've never spoken about. However, the extended course, you guys are also going to receive material about the most useful functions of volatility after, so that everybody gets what they really have questions about. Oh my god, what the fuck. So the next thing I wanted to talk about are the most useful. So you have to navigate through this page, I would say. Now, the reason you'd have to navigate through this page is that this has a lot of things, a lot of information. Okay, so the information that I don't think anybody has ever talked about. Okay, one second. So I moved from the charger and stuff like that. So this information is obviously just another Red Lotus. Uh, the Red Lotus repository is over here, basically. Yes, that's just a summary of monetary guide, which means that if you are looking for extensive knowledge, what I would recommend that you guys do is that to find things and navigate things faster. The first thing is that just ask the AI about the method that you are looking for, and then go through that. For example, go to this page, go to this chapter, and then just, look for those chapters in the guide itself. However, this has more information, more extended information. Okay, this is very nice, by the way. Um, this is very nice. I remember we used these rejects for a lot of things. Like in this case, fileless execution. Now, you can use, so I have given all of you some page that you can use for individual research and learning. But we'll also be utilizing that for our own sake. Okay, so those constructions are like, do you guys have any questions? Like, do you have questions? And what do you mean no? Like, are you sure that you guys have no questions? Hold up. So questions, questions. Okay, yeah, finally something. Lol bins. Okay, so you are asking about lol bins. So there you go. We have the answer for that. So what that means, Alicia. Okay. So lol bins are basically the other terminology for fileless malware. It is a load bin because it leaves off the LAN, which means that the um, you inject the malicious code through non-executable. You use dependencies, so you still use interpreters that are on the system. However, the payload is not a physical file. It is rather a code. It is rather a script. But that doesn't mean that the payload doesn't have a vessel. What that means is that the payload itself is not an executable. So that's just another fancy way of saying fileless malware. So there are examples that I have in this guide, especially in this guide. Um, and these are also the things that we have covered in our webinars. I think you guys should also watch this new packet of webinars that I have added. Um, there are at least 26, but most of these videos are repetitive, like these ones. I was just copy pasting everything that I found, and basically, so one of those webinars are gonna be fileless malware. Yeah, okay. And this one is for Lotus Plus. Okay. Copy link. We can go to this page over here. What you guys have to also understand is that most of the things that you people still have questions with have already been covered. They have been explained, they have been analyzed, they have been detected, and stuff like that. Now, you can watch those videos, and I highly recommend that if you haven't watched this, you do that. And I also highly recommend that you guys uh, start first with Prefetch for those two. I would recommend that you guys also do and analyze those things, but we can do that together if you want to or if you're lazy. And I also recommend that you guys absolutely watch all of those videos, especially all of those videos, no matter what. Most of them were the free training videos, but those are not distributed anywhere, so only Lotus Plus had them. However, now you guys have that, and uh, it will be better for you to also do that. On the other hand, I'm always here. I can always help you guys, and blah blah blah. So here's an example about VPS for MHTA. So HTA, which loads bypasses through registry and through browser websites, for example. That's what it stands for. That's why it is a HTA. And the fun part here is that you can just ask me, say, what is an HTA based on this page? And it's gonna give you that answer if it is written here, I think. Yeah, okay. Okay. HTML application. Yeah, okay. So it gives you answers, right? So it gives you also the resources that it got that from, for example, here, and then the logging evasion. It gave you that here too. So this is a very good resource to have, but I know that most of the people don't know how to utilize this. And the best part here is that you can ask it questions in any language because it also translates and send you the responses in the language that you ask it. So isn't that cool? So this is a very useful material. I don't know why people have not thought of this yet. I don't know why they have not utilized this, but it is a very crucial material for something that we have already discussed and something that I have no right to even teach for paid services. Is all of this is free knowledge. All of this is, uh, you can just Google this. Well, not all of this. Most of this is just my experience of the 3 years of inspecting and the screen sharing. But when it comes to the user assist explanations, okay, this is you can just Google this and you can come to a conclusion. You can just talk, like read this if you want to. Another thing that I wanted to test, to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure that you can also make this read it out loud, right? The conversation. So what I can do for you guys, take the topics from this entire guide, and I'm gonna turn them into a very extensive PowerPoint presentation as well as an audiobook so that you listen to it. Okay? But the audiobook is only just reading what it means. It doesn't really visualize anything, so you should listen to it with the PowerPoint, or I will just add those voiceovers into the PowerPoint itself. So, for example,
Charge
do
complete.
I still not have any questions, like any questions at all? False positives on legitimate admin. Okay. This is exactly what digital forensics studies. I can't really, I can't um, really explain that simply to you because there's no explanation of that in the guide itself. However, this AI can, well, somewhat tell you or explain to you how to differentiate them. This is not the correct answer, by the way. This, this doesn't answer that question. However, it doesn't have to, because every time you come up with a trace like that, most of the servers usually ban for that. So you can ban for it immediately, straight up. Why do you not have any questions? I thought you'd have a lot of questions. So another thing is that these three research articles, okay, memory forensics and Yara rule sets. I will be adding Yara rules to this page as well. Do you know what that means if I add more Yara rules to this page? That means that the AI, so the artificial intelligence, will have something to take and write you the Yara rules that you will be able to use for your own detections. For example, if we ask these to so what is this page about? Well, this has two separate. So this Yara rule is written by me, extended by me. Yeah, because this only looks for the API references, and every file that has a load driver. This is an interesting and a very interesting function. Let's just call it that, because that means that the application is going to be loading the drivers. And by the way, these explanations, this explains how the script works, right? So this one. You can always read this, you can always go to the Black Energy malware and read the case studies if you want to, because this gives you different MITRE attacks. These MITRE attacks were added by me. I just analyzed what the Black Energy malware was. I just gave you guys the timetable, or not timetable, but a table that explains what those are. So everything was explained. Everything is explained. There are also volatility usages that you can rely on, and this is it also has the what's it called, the Yara rule that you can use for those detections as well. There are two case studies. Both of the cases are made up, and both of the cases only orient around volatility, right? So, with that being said, this webinar can be over because the topic was only, just I'm explaining everything to you that you should be doing. However, before we finish, oh my god, I actually don't remember adding this to my guide. I actually don't remember writing this. Which attacks use WMI? Oh, this is just a copy paste. Okay, yeah, because it's yeah, it's just an instrumentation. So what I was telling you guys to check is that for the next webinar, all around webinar, which is gonna be next week, I want all of you, every single one of you who have attended, to pick 2 chapters from the guide itself. 2 chapters, okay? Oh, I remember this one. Oh my god, this is actually those methods are very old, but they are still useful. Pick 2 chapters from this entire guide, merged guide. You can find this in Red Lotus Discord itself, because I still have it published in the announcements. And basically, just may have them ready, right? Mark down the pages. You have to do this, by the way. Mark down the pages. So let me type this, like homework. Let's just call this homework for next week. Because I know that you guys will not do that. I know that you guys will absolutely not do any of what I just say because you will forget what I told you. Okay. From the merged or the SS guide, pick 2 chapters. Yeah, it's just insane. I know how it works, okay. Chapters and mark down the pages from the Learn DFIR repository. Pick 2 subjects, topics, and create a new case study using the built-in AI or other external tools. Okay, I'm just gonna do everyone. Homework for next week. I hope that you guys remember this so I can start streaming. Okay. Now, this will make things very interesting and very fun to explain for the next week because I will also be doing that. Okay, I will also be doing all of this. However, next time, instead of just using AI and stuff like that, I'm gonna teach you guys how to utilize AI more better. And then I'm gonna explain what the AI gets wrong. Oh, also, third, never mind. Okay, it's not for the everyone homework, but okay. Do you guys understand the premise of this homework? No. If you somehow, yes, very good. If you somehow don't understand still what you are supposed to do, I'm gonna show you what you are supposed to do. You are supposed to open this page, select anything. Select anything, not only just digital forensics, because digital forensics has different topics, but not only just device inspections either. So you can go here to pick anything you want, select 2 topics, for example, in my case, jump lists and registry, so registered, and ask AI to create the case study about those 2. Then we'll summarize that. As for the oops, no, oh, oops, okay, I forgot. Okay, um, so what I was planning to, so what I was saying that you can pick anything from the documentation, you can pick anything from geoforensics, modern hunting, research articles, which are not that many. You can also go to the device inspections, so the screenshot guide itself, and then we have the AI summaries as well, and we also have the content, this task scheduler, erased file concepts, Windows architecture. In my case, let's say that I want to make something about Windows architecture, so this entire research, this entire page, all of this, and the erased file concepts. What I will do is that I will first of all, I will export as PDF. Yes, you can do that if you guys had no idea. export this as PDF. Okay, all pages, all pages. So then what you can do is that either download this or just go back. Oh my god, this just said 69 pages. And then you can use a Gitboot assistant to create a case study based on this entire thing, okay? Create a case study. That's what you have to do. That's all you have to do about this, about the second thing. You can use AI, you can type yourself, or you can also use third-party AIs that come up with information. This one doesn't come up with information. This one reads what is already. Why can I edit that, delete this channel? Because you have the permissions to. And the first one from the Merged SS guide, pick two chapters. Two chapters obviously are, let's say, the chapters about presets, chapters about load bins. You guys can do that because those are all in the Screenshot guide itself. Okay. And then what you will do is that you will mark down the pages. So from page what to what, and from page which to which. And you don't have to read this. You don't have to read any of them. All you have to do is mark them down. Because for the next week, when I hold this all-rounded webinar, what we will do is that we will see how many different topics you guys have. And then I'm going to create individual research on all of those questions. Well, I'm gonna research myself. I'm gonna find resources. Goodbye. I'm gonna find resources and I'm gonna summarize everything for you guys. And we're gonna then also discuss those case studies for the all-rounded webinar for everybody. So the first one is for the research purposes that will be posted in the course material, or it will be sent to you privately as well. If you want to, you can choose that. And we are also just gonna discuss the case studies. And this time, I'm going to be using utilities, right? I'm gonna be using System Informer. I'm gonna be trying to demonstrate the case study itself physically on my device, right? So I think that's logical, and I think that's fair that I do that. With that being said, you guys are all free right now from me for the next. Now everybody is free except for personalized coaching. We will have another. Well, everybody is free except for another webinar in, like, let's say 3 to 4 hours. You pick 3 or 4.